Okay, in this video we're going to talk about percent of change, and this word change, that means that something was a certain number and then it changes to something else, right? There's a difference. So make sure that that's what you remember. When something changes, we're talking about percent of change. Okay, now what is percent of change? According to the definition, it's a ratio that compares the change in quantity. Okay, it compares the change in quantity to the original amount. So that's what you need to know. We're going to be talking about the original amount and the change in quantity. Okay, you have probably heard about these three letters right here, right? I think everybody knows what this means. LOL. What about OMG? You heard those before, right? Okay, what about JK? Yeah? And let's see what else. SMH, you heard that one before? All those are like, on Facebook and Twitter, and okay, so you know what those mean. Laugh out loud, oh my god, just kidding, and shake my head, right? Shaking my head. So now we're going to talk about other ones that we have to do with math, and one of them is the AOC and then the OA, and that's not very complicated because amount of change, that's the AOC, and the original amount is the OA. So instead of me writing the whole thing, I'm going to be using these three letters, AOC and OA. AOC stands for the amount of change, and the OA stands for the original amount. And this is the numbers, this is the places where those are going to go according to my formula. So this is the formula that we're going to be using for this kind of problems. Okay, we still have the proportion box, we still have the percent up here, we still have the 100 under the percent, and the other two things that are going to change here now is going to be the amount of change on the top and the original amount. Now in order for us to find the amount of change, we're going to have to subtract. That's one thing that we need to do to find the AOC, the amount of change. We'll have to subtract. Once we have that, then we can set up the proportion using the formula. We cross multiply and then we divide, just like we've been doing before. Okay, so let's see if we can understand that. Let's look at the first problem. Oh, but we're also going to have to be talking about whether this is a percent of change. Did it go up or did it go down? If it went up, it's going to be called percent of increase, and if it goes down, then it's going to be percent of decrease. Okay, so this is how we're going to do it. The original price was $120. The new price is $150. So did the price go up or did the price go down? The price went up, right? It's now 150, used to be 120. So this would be a change, and the change was it increased. So when it says state whether it's a percent of increase or decrease, then we know it's going to be a percent of increase because it went up. So this is the first thing that I need to put in my problem. Did it go up or did it go down? Well, in this case it went up. So we have a percent of increase. Now we're going to use our formula to solve the percent of change, to find that percent of increase. Since we know what the number goes here, it's always going to be that 100, right? And we're looking for the percent of increase, so that's going to be the X. That's the percent that we don't know. We do know what goes here and what goes there. If you go back to the top of your page, on the bottom we need to use the original amount. This is always going to be the OA, the original amount. So the original amount is 120. That's what I'm going to write in this box right here, 120. Now on the top, you're going to be tempted to put that 150. And if you put 150 right here, then that's going to be wrong. You have to be careful because this right here is not where you put the new price. This right here is where you put the AOC, the amount of change. And how do we find the amount of change? Well, we need to subtract, like it says right here on step number 1. We're going to have to subtract to find that answer. And what are we going to subtract? We're going to subtract these two numbers. We're trying to find the difference, the amount of change. How much did it change by? So I'm going to do 150 minus 20. And when I do that, I get 30. So the amount, this right here, this is the AOC. That's the amount of change. it changed from 120 to 150. It changed $30. So that's the number that goes here. That's the 30. Now that we have our proportion set up, now we can cross multiply and divide. So if we cross multiply 30 times 100, that's going to give me 30 with 2 zeros behind it. So 3,000. And if I multiply x times 120, I end up with 120x. Now if you remember the other videos that I've been doing for you, the coefficient is the number sitting in front of the x. In this case is 120. So I'm going to divide by that coefficient on both sides of the equal sign. So I divide by 120. And when I do that, these 120s cancel out, leaving me with just the x by itself. And that's what I wanted. And then I bring down my equal sign. And now I have 3,000 divided by 120. But here's the other shortcut that I showed you in class or in the videos. When you have a 0 on the bottom and it's a whole number, and you have a whole number on the top with a 0 at the end, you can cross out those two zeros. So now you have a smaller division. You only have 300 divided by 12. Now we know 12 can go into 3, but 12 goes into 32 times. That's 24. And when you subtract and you regroup correctly, this gives you 6. Bring down the 0 and you have 12. 12 goes into 60 5 times. 12 times 5 is 60. Remainder 0. So 300 divided by 12 is 25. So when I say what is the percent of increase, the percent of increase is 25. Because that place right here, that's your percent place. If you look in your formula up here, that's where your percent goes. Okay, so that's why we have the percent. So that's why we put not just 25, but 25%. So my final answer is 25% of increase. Okay, you gotta tell me if it's a percent of increase or percent of decrease. And that's the percent of change. That's how you do these problems. Let's do another one. Album was $6. $6 album is now $4. It's on sale. You get it cheaper. So now we're gonna have a percent of what? Increase or decrease? Did the price go up or did it go down? It was $6, now it's $4. So the price went down. So that's going to be a decrease in price. So when I find my answer, it's going to be percent of decrease. Now that I know what it is, now I can go ahead and fill in my proportion box. And we all know that in the bottom left is going to be a 100. We don't know what my percent is. That's what I'm looking for. So that's where my x goes. I do know here is going to be my OA. That stands for original amount. The original amount was $6. So I'm going to put my 6 here. And remember what goes up here. It's not the 4. That 4 does not go there. You need to know that this is the amount of change. And the amount of change, remember, we get it by subtracting the two amounts, the original and the new. So I'm going to do 6 minus 4. Oh yeah, that's just $2. So that's the amount of change. That's what goes right there. Okay, the amount of change was $2. Now I can cross multiply and divide and see if I get my answers. Okay, so when I multiply 6 times x, I get 6x. And when I multiply 2 times 100, I get 200. Now, in this case, my coefficient, again, that number is sitting in front of the letter, that's a 6. So that's the number that I have to divide by so that I can get rid of it, a 6. And when I divide both sides by 6, this 6's cancel out. That leaves me with x all by itself right here. And 200 divided by 6, well, I don't know, let's work that out. 6 can't go into 2, but it goes into 23 times, because 3 times 6 is 18. Remainder 2. If you do this correctly, bring down the 0. Oh, you got 20 again. 6 goes into 23 times, and that's 18. So 20 minus 18, that's 2 again. So something's going to be repeating here. But here's where some of you make mistakes, and you put 33 and you put repeating. The 33 repeating is not what is repeating. If you add a decimal here and you bring up the decimal and you bring down a 0 and you see that's going to be a 3 again, then the numbers behind the decimal, those are the ones that repeat. So yeah, the answer is 33.3 repeating. Or you could have left it as a fraction and you could have said 33 and 2/6, but then you would have to reduce 2/6. That can be reduced by 2 and you end up with 33 and 1/3. So this number is the same thing as this number. And they're both percentages because that's what goes up here on top of the 100. So x is equal to 33.3 repeating percent, or 33 and 1/3 percent. And remember, this is a percent of decrease, so I need to label it as percent of decrease. And that's my final answer for this problem. Okay? Now the junior high problem. Let's look at this one right quick. So junior high school enrollment changed from 500 students to 725. Find the percent of change in enrollment. Okay, so let's think about what's going on here. It changed from 500, this is your original amount, to 725. That's the new amount. Okay, and we want to know the percent of change. We want to find that percent of change. So to fill out my proportion box, first I have to figure out if this is going to be a percent of increase or decrease. Did it go up or did it go down? It started at 500, the enrollment, and now there's 725 students. So it went up. So this is going to be a percent of increase. Okay? And now that we know that, we can go ahead and fill in our numbers. This is always going to be the 100. We're looking for the percent. We don't know the percent. We do know the OA, the original amount. That's 500. So that's what goes right here. Remember, this is where the OA goes. And remember what goes up here? The AOC, amount of change. To find the amount of change, we have to subtract. We have to subtract 725, the new amount, minus the old amount, the original amount, minus 500. So when you subtract, you get 225. That's the amount of change. That's what goes right there. Okay, so now you can cross multiply and divide, and I'll let you finish this problem by yourself. Let's look at the last one. $300 stereo amplifier is on sale for a limited time for $204. Find the percent of change in price. So again, this right here is the amount that the stereo is originally priced at, $300. So this is your original amount. This right here is your new amount because now it's selling for $240. So when we want to find the percent of change, is this going to be a percent of increase or decrease? It went down, so it's going to be percent decrease, right? So make sure you write that down. Percent of decrease. Now it's cheaper. And when you fill in your box, remember to fill in your 100 right here. This is going to be your percent, so that's your X. Remember here, you're going to put your original amount, and here's your amount of change. I'm not going to tell you how to do this one. I think you already know. I think I already told you plenty to find out how to do this one. Use the examples that we did before so you can finish these notes. Okay? Alright, hopefully you come prepared tomorrow to class when you see this video. Thank you.